first crossroads where souls collide. See the Prince of Darkness, see the Prince of Lies, while the world lies sleeping and the moon's aglow. They may meet with the devil, you know. When your heart is quaking and your soul can't rest, open up the pages of the devil you know best. People face their demons as each tale unfolds, but the devil's in the details, and their fate's been sold. Hear their fate's been sold, and they're lost to hell. That's the deal you have to make with the devil you know well.
Gathered from the pulps of yesteryear come the heroes made of bronze and gold. There are talking gorillas, there are skulls on fire in this story that must be told. They're a titanic team, they're a group without peer. There's not a threat or a villain that they're going to fear. Unbreakable Argonauts, fighting from the old-fashioned way. Unbreakable Argonauts, swooping to save the day. The Unbreakable Argonauts!
It's the Critical Blast Podcast with our special guest, Ashley Land.
What a gentle intro that one was. I feel like I'm starting the Martha Stewart show. How are we all doing tonight? Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Ashley Land in the house with us. We're going to talk about some comics. Ashley, how are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing pretty good, thanks. It was cool hearing the team get their own song.
Hey, I've been trying to do that for the last month for everybody. It just gives me something, a new way to stand out, I guess, among the other podcasts.
I heard the song start, and I was like listening to the lyrics, and I was like, that sounds kind of familiar. And then I realized it was about it was very
then
cool.
You get to the chorus, and it's funny because it's like some people I can tell aren't paying attention because I can see y'all down in the little admin window when I run the thing, and I'll hear people like, it's still music. I can still do something. Wait, what did they say? Was that me? So it's fun. Gives me something. I get bored easily. It gives me something to do during the day before a stream comes up. I'm like, oh, make the song happen.
I know totally how you feel.
So, Unbreakable Argonauts immediately calls to mind the classic crossover of the ages, which was when all the Greek mythologists said, hey, let's take all our heroes and put them into one great big crisis. Like, Marvel and DC were like way behind the curve on this. This was something that's old as time itself. I'm not going to say what inspired you to make it the Argonauts, because it obviously was the Argonauts, but what made them the Argonauts?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my favorite movies as a kid. It was probably the first. I mean, they're not in the movie. Obviously, they're not superheroes as such, but it was like my first. I mean, for me as a kid, that those were superheroes. They take on a giant man of steel, and they take on monsters and all that kind of thing. And when I was making the comic, I wanted the name to sound like something that something that just really pops and that people would hear it and they think that's familiar, but it's not generic, because some of the names I was coming up with for my team name were things like the Squadron of Superheroes, and I never really liked how generic some of them sounded, but the Argonauts, obviously, it's not mine, but it's something that you don't really see in comics. And I thought, one of the themes I want to do for the series is to kind of take some of the elements of old school kind of Greek mythology and turn them into like science fiction ideas and that kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, just really wanting to kind of merge the two and see if they could coexist, which I think they can. And they came up with the Unbreakable Argonauts.
We got the link to this, by the way, folks, is right below the video, so you can click on it at any time. Right below the video if you're watching on YouTube. All you folks on Twitter, we appreciate you there. Obviously, you don't see the description underneath the video. I don't think you do. But if you do, you'll see the link too. If not, hop on over to the YouTube section and click the link so you can go to the campaign. I will put the link up in a chat here just in a minute. Why don't I just do that now? Just so you can see it and type it in. Where did my StreamYard go? There I am. This is the campaign. Wayne Klingman in the chat is asking where you are from. Is it from the UK or from Oz? And of course, I'm sure he means Australia, not the fictional place you're here.
I'm originally from the UK, but I live in Ireland at the moment.
Okay.
So it's probably
third option.
My accent a bit stranger.
Okay, so like yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, and here in the U.S., apparently it just means everybody wears green and gets drunk. What happens in Ireland on St. Patrick's Day? Is it like Mardi Gras, or is it just like another day?
I mean, it really depends on where you are. In the city, it's a big deal. In the smaller towns, it's just a excuse to go hit the bar.
So it's like yesterday we were all Irish. Next month and a half from now, we'll all be Mexican on Cinco de Mayo.
What's funny is when I first moved out here, we lived like way out in the sticks, and they're like way out on the coast, but on like a small coastal town that no one really knows about. And there was one of our neighbors, this guy would show up every year from America, and he was his like long lost 3-4 generations removed cousin or something, and he'd just show up for the summer and just kind of larp being Irish.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've kind of wanted to do that because my ancestry does go up to Ireland on me mother's side. But I've never, I don't know anybody over there. I guess. And when you find out there's like there are Irish kings in the line, but I'm also, aware enough to know that an Irish king meant that, you had a cave a little bit bigger than the other cave. At some point, they were just rock houses. They weren't like these grand Camelot castles that you see in fairy tales and such. It was fairly modest. Being a king wasn't all it was cracked up to be. So we know where you're from now. Great. Are you publishing in the UK or are you publishing in the US? I mean, what's your fulfillment like? That's what the guy wants to know.
Yeah, so it's flat shipping. It's about $10 flat shipping around the world. It will be printing probably here in Ireland. I have reached out to some American printers and fulfillment centers, but I think it's just easier to do it all myself. And I don't know how it is in America, but shipping to America from here is pretty cheap. So I'm not worried about it.
All right, good. If you ever change your mind, let us know. And that's the end of the sales pitch. So what do you see as for the Unbreakable Argonauts as a franchise? Is this like, I want to tell the story and here it is in this book, or is like, I have a lot of stories to tell and this is the first of many?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I were to pick a series that I want this to be like, it would probably be Bronze Age Brave and the Bold. Where the book really starts in 28, where you have the Justice League come together for the first time, and then from then it kind of sprawls out into Batman and Green Lantern in this issue, and Etrigan and Aquaman in this issue, and that kind of thing. So I'd like to have this kind of a continuous series, but I don't want to not every issue has to be the same characters over and over and over again. So this story is going to be the whole team. It's going to be told through 2 issues. This first story arc. This is for issue 1, and then issue 2. Hopefully, we can get the campaign started later on this year. And yeah, after that, I want it to be the same continuity, but I don't want everything to be too tied to the same. I don't want people to come into it issue 5 thinking they have to buy issues 1 to 4. If I can help it, I'd like for it to be, self-contained story after self-contained story, but still within a continuity.
You can do a whole lot more character development too when you just have 2 characters. I mean, you've established they're part of a team, and you're like, hey, these 2 team members had to do something. Just them interacting, they're part of the larger group. You can enjoy that fact, but then you get to know, their personalities a little bit more than you could when you're dealing with all those players on the stage at one time.
Yeah, and I mean, different characters interact better with, certain characters. Like if you look at the Justice League, Batman and Superman obviously have their own thing. Flash and Green Lantern have their own thing. And yeah, I mean, it's good to have variety every now and again, to just, focus on these guys over here. And, everyone knows that the other characters are doing something else in the background. You don't have to cover everyone all the time.
You mentioned it. There were those were the pairs that people are aware of. It was like, Green Arrow. Sometimes it was Green Arrow and Green Lantern. Sometimes it was Flash and Green Lantern. They all had their own chemistry.
Yeah.
One of the pairs that I never got, I didn't understand why it was this way, other than the fact that like they're 2 least selling titles, so we're going to jam them together into one, see what that does. And they had their own book called The Atom and Hawkman. They were a pair. I was like, and we're talking about the alien cop Hawkman and the Ivy University professor who could shrink. Nothing in common at all, but
it makes for a good team up.
It did, and you know what? It made for the writers had to get creative to find a way to make their powers mesh. Because honestly, Hawkman, he just flies and hits things. So the Atom's the one who had the power in that one.
Yeah.
But I did love the Brave and the Bold series too. That was when I was reading it growing up, it was always a Batman title. It was Batman and this person, Batman and that person. And
yeah, it was right after the I think right after the Adam West show, they were like, people are coming here for Batman. Let's just make it Batman and guest
keep
star
it all the time. They did a thing for a while. This was back in the days, the dark ages before internet and Diamond Magazine, our Previews magazine, and all that. They wouldn't tell you what the next issue was, who was in it, because in the story there'd be like a hidden Easter egg. Like he'd be fighting with one hero against a villain, and there'd be a dark alley, and in the alley there'd be a trash can, and in the trash can there would be an arrow sticking up out of it, and it was green. Like, there's your clue. Next issue is Green Arrow. And it was there's a whole website devoted to this. You can go look up the Easter eggs, and it shows you the progression of each one. You'd see the shadow of the creeper on the side of a building as they were doing something totally unrelated. You're like, the creeper's coming next issue.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that that's the kind of thing I'd like to do, is to just have that kind of not necessarily revolving door, but the fun and the excitement of like, who's going to team up next, what are they going to do, what are they going to take on.
Let's put the characters on the stage here and find out who it is that we're talking about. I mean, we know that the team is the Unbreakable Argonauts, but see if I can get a bigger shot here of this looks like the best one possibly. So who are these people and why do we care?
So I can walk you through each one of them. I'll start with the soldier guy. That's Mandrake. He's so the story itself is set in 1952. So not long after the Second World War has ended. Right around the Korean War, and so not every character, but a lot of them have a connection to the Second World War. And so Mandrake is your kind of I think of him as partway between Punisher and Batman. He's a guy who came home from the war and wanted to keep up being a hero. And so he uses guns, but he uses non-lethal guns. He's like Batman. He's got the the code of ethics against killing.
Okay.
And then you've got the Raven, which is the kind of Batman-looking guy in the bomber jacket. He's the he's the engineer and the kind of brains behind the operation and the funding source, and so he's the one who supplies everyone else with all the gadgets and everything that they need.
Gotcha.
The woman's actually the Raven's wife. They're a husband-wife superhero team up. She's got very limited speed abilities, so not quite Flash. Probably slower than Golden Leaf Flash as well.
Okay.
Sort
of like a speed of sound level, but not speed of light.
Yeah. And then you've got Aurelius, which is the gorilla. His story goes back to the 1920s. He was being smuggled into America from Africa to go and perform in one of the big, one of the big circuses. Along the way, him and his friend Gigantora, they were both, small little baby gorillas at the time, fell off the back of a truck. They kind of broke out to freedom. They crawled towards a swamp that was contaminated with chemicals, and they drank from it. And the more they drank from it, the smarter they got. But the two gorillas kind of developed different philosophies. So Gigantora is the supervillain gorilla. He kind of resents humanity and doesn't really like the treatment of gorillas or animals, and so he became a supervillain. He joined this team. He's completely out for himself. Just doesn't really care for people. Just wants to enrich himself. Whereas Aurelius is more thoughtful. He's more heroic. He wants to do the right thing, and so he's kind of the. I wouldn't say like the Professor X, because he's not like a sit back and stand by type of character. Not that Professor X is, but he's, he gets out in the thick of the action.
Yeah, but he does look more thoughtful.
Yeah. And then you've got Crimson Eagle, which is the jetpack hero.
Okay.
I couldn't do the comic itself is kind of a love letter to like old school pulp. And, doing that, I couldn't do a pulpy superhero team and not have a jetpack guy. And so his story is he was a test pilot in the Second World War. And this was the program that he was testing out was this jetpack suit. And along the way, the jet age comes in, and the Navy decides, we're happier to go in the direction of fighter jets than these little suits that don't have guns, and we see that as obsolete and useless. And so he was like, well, you're not going to do anything with it. I might as well take it with me and become the superhero with it. Over here you've got Phantasma, which is the ghostly hero. He was so there's two generations of hero in this universe. There's these guys, and then there's the who I call the Night Guardsmen, which is a Victorian team of like vigilantes. And he was a member of the Night Guardsmen. He was murdered during his time on the team, and he's kind of come back as not necessarily a vengeful spirit, but he's got unsettled business. He wants to figure out who murdered him. And so for as long as he doesn't know who killed him, he's bound to Earth until he can, find out who killed him. And he has powers like, Johann Kraus from BPRD.
Kind of.
And so he can kind of infect machinery and take it over. And,
okay.
For a brief time, he can possess the weak-minded and that kind of thing. And then at the back, you've got Thunder, which is the traditional, Cape superhero. He was an archaeologist during the Second World War in the North Africa campaign. Him and his men went to Egypt, and he found an old amulet from ancient Egypt, and he picked it up, and it gave him superpowers, and he was able to basically fight off the Nazis in North African campaign and come out of it as a, all-American superhero.
Now, a lot of these characters look like they were Golden Age characters who would be in public domain now, but these are all your original characters, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, when it's like a gorilla, it's not like an original idea. But yeah, I mean, the idea is to kind of go with more, they're original, but they're relatable and familiar, and there's something.
None of them have been published anywhere else, is what I'm saying. It's not like that's not Six Gun Gorilla.
No.
and this would be Gigantor here that you already mentioned, the evil gorilla,
Yeah.
because this is the evil team with is that seriously Joseph Stalin in an eye patch? Come on.
It is not. It's not Joseph Stalin. That's a villain named Major Morozov. He's a KGB major, and the idea behind him is he's basically the Russia's most effective general, but he's kind of so evil that they don't actually let him operate in Russia, and so they basically give him a budget to go out into the world and just sow chaos against America, and he's
Stay
quite
out of the
effective
country.
at it. Yeah. And then you've got a Green Ghost, which is the the flaming skeleton. He was a older supervillain who was killed and reanimated to the dead by this green flame, and so that's his power source. And then you've got over in the bottom corner, you've got Dr. Venus, which is he's the last of his kind. He's a Venusian scientist, crash landed on Earth, and IQ well beyond the human being. Invents things for the bad guys and performs creepy experiments and all that kind of thing.
I love the variety. That's what I always loved about team books was it's I feel like a lot of the team books that have come out in the last 20 years, maybe even longer, they're just all fighty, blast. There's no one who's got like, my power is unique. In fact, one of the things that annoys me to death is that superheroes have started to have families, not generating families, not like going out and having kids. I'm fine with that. But like, hey, it's the Flash barbecue. Let's get all the speedsters, all 70 bajillion of us around. It's like, no, the thing that made the Flash cool was that was his thing, speed.
Yeah.
As soon as you can have two. You can have a sidekick. That's okay. You can see where, the mantle will one day pass to the sidekick. That day should never come. But you know the future that won't happen. As soon as you've got a third, a fourth, a 17th, it's watered down. It's no longer special.
Yeah. And it's not really practical. I mean, from just from the perspective of publishing, it just doesn't seem practical because hardly any of them ever end up in their own book. They just kind of, I mean, you hate to say it, but you read the books and they're just kind of there. Yeah. And, a lot of them, I mean, you mentioned Flash, you've got, how many Flashes is it now? 7?
At least.
Yeah, and you just read the book and it's like, there should really be a Barry and a J book, that kind of nice, the Golden Age version and the current version working side by side, but, you end up with 5 of them and I just don't think it works.
Now they do have a J book now. I don't know if you've read that one or not.
Jeremy Adams.
Yeah, and I'm loving what they're doing with Jay Garrick and the Boom, his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
That whole thing Jeff Johns did, where he's like, "Hey, a lot of these characters in the Golden Age had sidekicks," and then usually it was always an editorial decision. It was like, "Hey, you know what? People don't really care about the sidekick. We're gonna write them out of the series," and they didn't just like kill them off. They just quit writing them. Like, we'd forget, and Jeff doesn't forget anything. So he's like, well, what happened to them? Let's make a story. And he brought them all back into the Justice Society. And now Jay's daughter that, people forgot he had is back in the scene. Still young, and he's old, so it's kind of weird. But they're Flashes. They get used to time travel, stuff like that.
Yeah, I like that kind of. I do kind of wish that DC would invest more in that corner of the universe, because I think that I think that kind of thing can work. But every time they try and dust off the Golden Age stuff, it's like we're going to do this for summer and then never again. And people don't buy it as much as I think they probably would if it was like, hey, there's. I mean, if you look at like the JSA book by Jeff Johns, I think that's 12 issues. And
it went on for a lot longer, actually. There was quite a run, but that was Robinson, I think, was doing part of that too.
The current one.
Well, the current one's only up to 8 issues.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that's kind of thing I'm talking about. Is I think if they'd have brought in another writer who didn't have the wasn't as busy of Jeff Johns maybe is, and they'd have just said this is going to be an ongoing series, I think more people would have shown up for it.
Yeah. I'm still showing up, but it's like I keep showing up. And it's like, yeah, it's still the old issue. Let me know when you get a new one in, guys.
Yeah.
The other thing about the JSA is that it's time bound. All the characters fought in World War II, and they've kept that. And we're like, how old are they now? I mean, you can only go through so many magical rejuvenation explanation stories before you're like, okay, they're just never going to die. We've got it now. Silver Age, they didn't have to go through any kind of a war. And if they did go through a war, it was always an analogous war. It wasn't the real Vietnam. It was just like, there was a war in Asia and, it was mentioned.
Yeah.
So they can stay a little bit more eternal. I still think they ruined that when Dick Grayson became Nightwing. I'm like, oh, he's an adult now. The clock is ticking. I can hear it. Batman's now in his late 40s. That's not supposed to happen.
Yeah. I think, to be fair with the Batman one, I think the success of Frank Miller's book, they're like, maybe people like a middle-aged Batman.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, Frank Miller's book also predestined Jason Todd to die. So that had to happen. I noticed that the leader, or at least the forefront person in each of the two teams, is a civilian identity. There's no masked character. It's just, I'm a military person. Is that intentional or?
Actually, it's not intentional. With the villains, the idea is, the Russian general's got the backing of the Kremlin, so it makes sense that he would, come out on top as the leader. With the heroes, it's more, Mandrake is still in kind of the military mindset, and so he, takes on the kind of traits you'd want in a leader, whereas each of the other ones kind of brings something to the table, but not necessarily leadership.
So, but why not hide the identity? I mean, he's not wearing a mask. He's using his name.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I personally preferred it that way. I mean, some of the characters obviously do hide their faces, but I thought it would be. I don't know. I just thought something about it worked.
Yeah, it has worked in the past for several characters. I mean, Nick Fury, very successful character, would seem to be a parallel for Mandrake. He's, military experience, leading a squad of superheroes into battle all the time. Yeah, it works. I was just curious, when you come up with when you're sitting down to roll up a bunch of superheroes for a team, you generally don't think of just a guy named Joe, just there he is. He's a character without a mask.
I think part of it is it kind of builds up trust between superheroes and their communities. So I mean, if you look at the Avengers, knowing that Tony Stark is Iron Man and that kind of thing, it's it builds up a little bit of trust.
They all kind of know who each other is, I think.
Yeah.
Look at the penciling on this, folks. This train and background scene. This is beautiful.
This is by,
are you the Daniel Mack?
Daniel Max.
Max, okay.
Yeah, he's the interior artist. Just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, this is some really cool stuff. What's the completion status on this book? I mean, is it done?
It's not finished. We're gonna have. So all the line art will probably be done in probably about 3 weeks.
Right, so close to done then.
Yeah, this first issue is going to be 32 pages. We've got about 21 pages of the 32 done, and then a few of them colored. But yeah, I mean, Daniel's a pretty quick artist, so probably going to have it done pretty soon.
Looking at the action, you look at this guy swoop in and knock this guy off the train, and then you can tell the fight's on right there on top of. classic on top of a train. There's a tunnel coming up here, guys. That's what always happens when you fight on top of a train. Someone's going to get hit by the tunnel. So who is this guy? It's harder to tell from the cover versus the line art. But
Crimson Eagle. That's the jetpack hero.
okay.
And this is so there's two stories that kind of establish the characters. There's the train heist, and then there's the guerrilla fight, and both of them occur in about the first third of the story. And just a nice way to kind of introduce the characters and show you what they're up against and what kind of heroes they are and how well they work together and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And this scene here really gives you an idea of the scale of the guerrilla characters, because they're not just guerrillas, they're Mighty Joe Young level. They're big.
Well, Gigantor is the bigger one. He has the power of size regulation, and so he can make himself regular gorilla size, or he can get up not quite King Kong size, but he can get pretty big.
Okay. And Aurelius, does he have a power other than intelligence?
No, just intelligence.
So he got shortchanged. I find it interesting too that that Gigantor is the one who's kind of got a golden color to him, whereas Aurelius is named sort of gold in the root of his own name, and he's not gold, unless the coloring is just not showing it here.
No, I mean that was just the colorist choice, really.
Color should have known what the words meant. So this is the hero team's fighter jet of some kind.
Well, that's so you got that's being flown by the Raven, which is, as I said before, kind of the Batman, the engineer, the Thunder, the Thunder of the group. Yeah. And so he's got he runs an aerospace company, and so he's got all these prototype jets that he can play with when he needs them, and all that kind of thing.
So he's the Howard Hughes in this world.
Yeah, basically.
Well, that brings to mind, are all of your heroes heroic, or do they have foibles? Because when I say, oh, he's the Howard Hughes of this industry, this era, I'm immediately thinking, how quirky Hughes was. Do any of your heroes have, the traditional, oh, this is my, psychological weakness or physical weakness, or, hey, yeah, I'm a great hero, but I like to drink and dance with the ladies a lot kind of stuff?
So the one I'm thinking about at the moment is Thunder, which is the Cape superhero, is kind of a short fuse kind of guy. And so even though he's the most powerful, he's the one that the other guys have to be like, come on, simmer down and step outside so we can have the conversation with the bad guy. We can do the interrogation. And so, yeah, I mean, for him, because I've been writing some later scripts, and the recurring theme I want for him is that he's a good fighter and he's a good leader, but you wouldn't necessarily want him to lead an interrogation because he's just too short fused. And yeah.
Sorry, he almost told me everything, but now he's a pulp. Because I'm just guessing that Thunder has Superman level strength. Just by his
closer, I would say, to Owlman. Maybe a bit stronger than Owlman, but not. He's not like moving planets or anything.
Gotcha. Well, neither is Superman these days, apparently. So. I got too many tabs open. I'm trying to shift over. You really like to play up the gorilla aspect of this, which is fine by me.
Yeah, I like gorillas.
We've got some more of the line right here.
Yeah, the gorillas was the one element I knew from the beginning that I wanted to include.
That's they were actually so important in the Silver Age.
Yeah.
I think it was Alan Moore that I learned it through. But it was somebody else that talked about the things that they noticed sold books in the Silver Age. Were
I think it was Julia Schwartz.
You know where I'm going. It's either a gorilla, a crying woman, or the color purple.
Yeah.
So the whole Promethea comic strip then.
Yeah, Alan Moore put all three of them together.
Yeah, the Weeping Gorilla comics. Uh, the things you can learn in comics, folks, about comics. Yeah, this interior art here is really good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of books where you see the cover and then you get inside and you're like, yikes. This is quality on both ends of it.
Yeah. Well, when I was because I was looking through, I reached out to some artists and I had a lot of portfolios to look at. I saw the day the day I was reaching out to everyone, I saw Daniel's portfolio and I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to afford this guy, but I hope I could work with him. And then he was one of the first guys to reach out to me and had a very reasonable page rate. And we pretty much started working together on day one and been on the same page ever since.
Yeah, that's going to change as he gets discovered through your book here. So lock him down while you can. Well, take a look at the tiers here because they're on the other side here. You can get your feature tier is the Heroes and Villains cover set. So that's both of the two covers that we saw earlier for $26.
Yeah,
for two comics. That's not bad. $26 US. And you said already that it's like $10 shipping anywhere in the world.
Yeah, for two books, I think it's a little bit more, but
right.
it's not going to break the bank.
Oh, you got Rich Parada to do a cover. Which one did he do?
Rich Parada did the villains. He's also drawing a backup story.
Okay.
Yannick Paquette did the heroes cover.
I got I've actually got this within arm's reach here from Rich. It's within arm's reach if I don't break it. He did some pinups for me here that I framed, and I've got this Betty Kane Batgirl from the Golden Age. I don't know if the glare is on that or not. And then that was a pair off with the Silver Age Batgirl in the opposite composition. So I can't wait to get these on the wall up next to each other. Small world. Love seeing names I already know working on projects I didn't know they were working on.
Yeah, Rich is doing a 7-page backup story for Crimson Eagle. And that will be featured in the book. So it's probably going to be about 40 pages of story for issue number 1.
Very good. Yeah, he's a good guy. $8 US for the digital, and of course, $16 for either one of the covers. Oh, wait a second. There's a third cover in here. Did not see that other big cover.
There's 4 covers altogether.
Okay. I only saw we need to get those pictures over here. So there's the Daniel Max cover.
Yeah.
Again, just as high quality as the interior. So, now I'm torn. I was like, Heroes and Villains cover. I'm ready to go. But now there's 4. And there's the Rich Parada cover by itself. And if you do math, folks, it's $16 for either one of those covers, but the $26 to get them together, that's a huge savings. That's $6 off to get them both. So let's see, we got, so their 4th cover would be this Raven Virgin cover then?
Mm-hmm.
And that's also Daniel Max, isn't it?
No, that's by an artist named Lucia
okay.
D. That's how she wants to be credited, so I'm just going to say Lucia D.
Lucia D, and there's only 100 of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, limited to 100.
Yeah. And one is gone. So you're selling ad space too. That's that's an ambitious attempt there, because hardly anybody does that. I know Alterna does it, and I think it helps fund their comics, because it's like, hey, you want to reach comic people who are buying crowdfunded books, get into the crowdfunded book. So a third of a page for $33, or probably back it 3 times and get the full page, people, for $99, right?
Yep.
That would be the approach I would take. You got some triple packs here, so if you want to get more than one copy, maybe you're a retailer, you want to put some on your shelves, you can get the bundle of one of each for $54. There you go. That's what I need to look at. $54, I can get all 4 covers. Thinking about it. And of course, you could become a character, but that's already gone, isn't it? So was that whenever I see become a character, there's different levels of it. It's like, we're going to give you a speaking role, or you're going to be somebody in the crowd, or you're going to be the dead body that they have to investigate the murder of. What was your character drawn into your like?
So everyone's going to be they're not going to be in a crowd, but they're not going to necessarily be speaking roles either. So one of them's going to be, because I've sold others on the previous campaign, one of them's going to be a bad guy, one of them's going to be a security guard, and one of them's probably going to be like a henchman.
Oh, good.
So it's yeah, because I know that some people have done it and they only get like a tiny fraction of the page. But yeah, for this one, you're going to get like a nice, prominent spot on a panel.
Okay. Now, you got 25 days left. You're 2/3 of the way there. This is a fixed goal campaign. That means that it's like we make it or we don't make it.
Yeah.
Is that how it's going to be? I mean, if you don't hit the goal, there's no comic?
Depending on how close we get, I might put in like the last, the amount, which I don't mind doing, just to get us over there so we can get the book made. Yeah, I'm pretty confident that we will get there. Yeah.
Has this only been up for how long has the campaign been going?
Let me think.
Because it says 25 days left, so I don't know if you've done up for 5 days or done up for 35 days.
2 weeks, I think we've been up.
Oh, yeah, you're going to do fine.
Yeah,
you're already 2/3 funded. Folks, definitely hit the follow on this one, and for the price of the covers here, you won't be disappointed. I'm sure you've seen the interior art. Now this is a big wide shot here. We didn't really talk about it because I didn't know how well it was showing up on the StreamYard. But what is this image here?
This is this is all the characters that I've currently got in the universe, all in one place.
Okay, is this going to be like offered as some sort of a print?
I'm thinking about turning it into like a nice poster. Just trying to figure out what the demand is for a poster. If it's there, then I will.
Yeah. People do like posters, but
surprisingly expensive to print.
Yes. And you want to keep them to something that fits in the Gemini mailer. Even if you got to fold it one time. Because once you start rolling them up in tubes, your price goes up exponentially.
Yeah.
Want to remind everybody as we approach the top of the hour here that Mike Walters is going live over on the mic stand with all the niche news fit to talk about in manga, anime, comics, and professional wrestling. So when you're done here, you take your bathroom breaks, you get your drink of water, and sit back down and come over for the news for the night. And of course, every Friday he does the comic book historic retrospective, where he goes back to the golden age and we read comic books out loud with voices and sound effects, just like radio theater. It's a lot of fun. And the next time they cover DC, it will be time for Robin to make his first appearance. We're doing it all in chronological order over there. So we do hope you'll pop over to the mic stand and give it a like and a subscribe. You'll be glad you did. So what's your timeline look like for production on the rest of this universe? I mean, we're going to assume this is going to fund. It's going to fulfill. What's the fulfillment date? September. So Unbreakable Argonauts 2 happens when in your plans?
If all goes according to plan, then hopefully this year, probably before winter.
Okay, so you're talking about kicking it off. I mean, it wouldn't be ready to deliver before then, no.
No, not ready to deliver before then, but yeah, we're hoping to have the second campaign up September, October, that kind of time.
Are you I know you talked about how the book would then go into sort of like a team up sort of book. Are you looking at potentially spinning any of the characters off into other titles and branching out into an Argonauts publishing line of different titles?
I mean, it really depends on how good we are at building up an audience and how successful the campaigns are. Some characters I could absolutely see giving them their own little graphic novel. Some I think make more sense in kind of a backup format. so they'll be always in the main title. Yeah, I mean, I think it works best that way for if it's a character who really works best alone, for them to have their own little graphic novel, and then for the main team to be kept in the main series.
Yeah, the stories I liked when they did when they do a secret origin of a hero, those are great as backup stories. You got 6 pages, tell the secret origin of this hero, boom, 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 you're done. We know everything. Well, when they take a graphic novel to tell the secret origin, it's like, okay, we're 3/4 of the way through, and now he becomes a superhero. Now that we've seen, his relationship with his mother and his therapist, and his car broke down and he lost his job, we don't care about that, honestly. And that's one of the things I really liked about the old comics was they were very punchy, and I don't mean the fights. I mean they got to the point, and it's like, hey, Peter Parker's a nerd. Turn the page. Look, he's going to a science fair. He got bit. Look, he's jumping on the side of a building. Bam, bam, bam. It just happened.
That was really important. So I've done pretty much everything with regards to the writing. Not to sound self-centered, but with myself in mind as the audience. So imagining I'm going into a comic book shop or I'm back in a campaign, what would I want to see? And action has been, really the focus of the writing. So I think in the first issue we have 32 pages. I think of the 32 pages, 7 don't have action. Everything else has a fight going on, or someone smashing something up, something like that.
Yeah, well, you should write the thing that you want to read, because if you're not, then you're not enjoying it. If you're not enjoying it, it's going to come out in the writing, and no one else is going to enjoy it either.
Completely
agree. If you're writing it, it's like, oh, this is great. That's going to be contagious, and it's going to transfer to the audience. Is this is your first comic, right? I mean, have you done comics before this?
This is my first comic, yeah.
Okay, so not even like stuff in high school that you passed around to friends, or?
I mean, I've written scripts before, but nothing published.
Okay. Why comics? Why did you? What drew you to writing comics?
I just love comics. Jack Kirby's stuff, especially Jack Kirby's Bronze Age DC stuff. like Commandy, New Gods, Etrigan. That stuff helps me fall in love with comics, and Len Wein's Swamp Thing, Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson's Swamp Thing. That was actually the first series where I mean, everyone gets into comics, and there's like, you read whatever, you read Batman, or you read, Superman, and maybe you're not necessarily feeling it, but then everyone comes across like that run that makes them love comics. For me, it was Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson's Swamp Thing. That was when I realized I loved comics, because you can just do so much with. I mean, you're basically making. I don't want to say you're making movies, but you're taking what works in movies, and you have no CGI budget, you have no special effects budget. As long as someone can draw it and you can imagine it, you can do it. Exactly. And there's just something so special about that storytelling.
Yeah, I think for me, I was reading comics for years because they were just coming home. The printing plant was the next town over, so they were all printed there. Everybody had them around. But I think for me, it was finally when I got to the Jim Aparo. I want to say it was Michael Fleischer as the writer, adventure comics with the Spectre. And, it was back when the Spectre was dead in both of his identities. Jim Corrigan was a cop on the force, but he was still a ghost. There was no, the Spectre leaves my body and does its thing and then comes back. Yeah. So he's like a ghost cop. He doesn't steam up the window. It was a big thing they pointed out. And I think the story that I read was he's like, he's bemoaning being stuck like this. Like, when have I paid my dues? When can I, finally, be with my girlfriend and everything. And apparently whoever he was praying to said, okay, fine, you've done enough. And he wasn't listening. So he charges into a hail of bullets thinking he's still the Spectre, and he gets shot dead. It's like, seriously? He's dead again? He wasn't alive but for 5 minutes and didn't even know it. It was funny to
You
me.
gotta love those moments when they give you something and then they take it right back.
Yeah, it's very in college we were told that was oh, I can't remember the name of the author now. Hemingway. It was a very Hemingway moment. You find a man with no shelter, you give him shelter, you take the shelter away, and now you watch what he does. So that's comics. Ashley, we have reached the end of the show here. Is there anything about this book that didn't get covered that needs to be covered while we've got a few minutes left?
I would just say, it's if you're interested, it's a callback to everything great about classic comics. If you love Golden Age heroes, or if you love, Bronze Age style action, you love, the classic pulp heroes, this is really the book for you. It's everything great about comics rolled into one place.
Yeah, it does really remind me of comics that I was reading in the 70s. And I know it's their first issue, but I feel like just looking at them and knowing about them, they're established heroes and have been established for a while. It feels like there's a lot of history behind them that we know it's there. We don't know what it is yet, but it's there. None of them are like having to introduce themselves to anybody. It's just like, oh, it's Golden Eagle. Look out. They know who he is. He's a character. They know who he is.
Yeah.
All right. Ashley, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. I do appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you back anytime you want to come back and, talk about the next issue, which will hopefully be very soon.
Hopefully, yeah.
Everybody in the chat, glad you're here tonight. We don't have a show without you guys. We're just a podcast falling in the woods otherwise. So we're happy to have you. And as always, while you were here, we just hope you had a blast. Good night, everybody.